Hey, what's going on, good people? It's Gardner Douglas, your oyster ninja. I'm back. I'm back, good people. And today I'm here with Mr. Alex, the man, the wildlife king, Troutman. What's going on, Alex? How you feel, man?
I'm doing good. How are you? I just appreciate you having me on here.
Hey, man, I'm good. So, like I was just telling you, this is my first podcast episode back um, on the platform since my laptop got stole. So I got a new one, and I'm back up. And I'm ready to push out some content. I'm ready to share some stories, man, starting with yours.
All right, let's get it.
All right. So first of all, Alex, you are a grad student, and for the people who are not looking on YouTube right now, this is a podcast. You're a black biologist, right?
Yes, I am. I'm 1%
African.
black.
So, all right, man. Let's just start a little bit about your story, man. How was your upbringing, man? Because to say you're a biologist and you're doing great things in the community, which we'll get to. Um, what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, so I grew up in a suburb of Atlanta. I grew up with my both parents, and like I really enjoy nature from the start. Like I would go fishing with my brothers and dad for the longest time, and then like I started getting to animals. Like fishing was cool and all, but I would see like hawks flying over and great blue heron, and I would be more interested in that. So like that got my interest and wanted to like learn about these animals. So I would start reading books and watching TV. And like I was watching like Steve Irwin, Crocodile Hunter, Jack Hanna, which are all like great conservationists and people who work with wildlife. But they're all white, so I didn't have like that representation of a black person actually working with animals. So for the longest time, like I knew I wanted to be a wildlife biologist and work with animals, but I didn't have that representation. The only people that I knew who worked with animals were either farmers or they were vets. So like no disrespect to them, but I wanted to be a conservationist, a wildlife biologist, and like I never seen anybody like me doing this. Like I'm 20 minutes away from a national park or a national battlefield technically, and there was no black people there. I live in Atlanta. There's Zoo Atlanta here, and there was no black zookeepers at the time. Like I didn't see my first black zookeeper until I started working at the zoo in my mid 20s. So I really didn't have that representation of what a black wildlife biologist was for the longest time. So I thought I was going to be a vet, so I went to school to actually be a vet. And then around freshman year, like I realized that vets have an actual high suicide rate because they're usually the ones the last ones in the room pin the animal down because most people don't want to be with the pets to see them get put down. So I learned that, and then like I actually took a field biology class where we were outside. It was actually ornithology, which is the study of birds. And was outside like looking at birds and studying their behaviors. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make this field biologist, wildlife biologist work. So I started on changing my classes to be outside all the time. Then I eventually graduated with a degree in biology, and now that brings me here.
So you had a lot in between though, man, because I know when I first started following you, um, you were doing a lot with turtles. And that's what really made me want you get on the podcast because I was like, whoa, first of all, you're black. And you had to do with, nature and just, wildlife. So I was like, all right, boom, boom, boom. We got all that. But I was like, I know nothing about turtles. So what made you want to dive into turtles and what was that job, I guess? So what kind of jobs have you had with turtles?
Yes, so um, I kind of got lucky with my job with turtles. So after I graduated with my degree, my undergrad degree, I worked as a park ranger for a little bit. Then I worked at Zoo Atlanta and the Georgia Aquarium. So the Georgia Aquarium is where I kind of got my first experience with working with sea turtles. And it wasn't really much experience. I literally was talking about Tank, the green sea turtle that lives in the enclosure with the whale sharks and some of the other manta rays and some of the like Goliath loopers, some of all the big fish there. So I was literally just interpreting about them. But I didn't know that those would lead me on to actually working with them. So after I left the aquarium, I worked in with the Fish and Wildlife Service in Wisconsin for about a year, working with butterflies and doing a lot of habitat restoration, which is basically manipulating the land to get it back restored for these butterflies that I was working with, but also some of the waterfowl, because the waterfowl, which are ducks, they also utilize the land. So we were actually restoring the land for the ducks, but since it helped the ducks, it also helped the butterflies. So I did that for about a year, and then a new administration came in, president administration came in and cut funding um, for the DOI, which is Department of Interior. So I was let go. And then that opened up me to be able to apply for and get the job working with sea turtles as a national park sea turtle biologist. So I was down in Corpus Christi, Texas at Padre Island National Seashore. And I was there working with mainly the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, which is the smallest sea turtle species. So with them, they're also pretty cool because not only are they the smallest sea turtle species, they're also one of the only species that actually nest during the day. All other sea turtles usually nest at night, but these guys, they nest during the day. And then they also nest in large groups called aerobatas. So they all have like a synchronized nesting moment where they come up and nest and lay their eggs. So I was working with those species, with that species, but we also work with green sea turtles and hawksbills. On the hawksbill sea turtle, they weren't nesting, but they were hatchlings or post hatchlings that just happened to be in the water, and sometimes they would get stranded, or which is washing up on the beach, and that's either because they were sick or injured, or sometimes a predator might have chased them, and they come up to the beach. So we would pretty much do a full workup on them, and a workup is seeing how much or seeing how wide they are, like how wide their shell is, seeing how long their shell is, and then looking for any tags. So we look for metal tags that are usually on their flippers. Then they also sometimes will have pit tags, which are electronic tags that go up under their flippers, and we use like a coder to read them. So with them, we have hawksbill, green sea turtles, and then leatherbacks, not leatherbacks, sorry, loggerhead sea turtles that would also get stranded sometimes. And then the main nesters are the Kemp's Ridley, and greens will nest on the coast of Texas also, and sometimes loggerheads as well. So we would work them up, and a day would look like we would drive on the beach. So a cool thing about my job there, we were in UTVs driving on the beach, looking for either these sea turtles that were either stranded or the ones that were nesting. So nesting sea turtles was our main focus. So we'll drive up on the beach looking for the actual turtles emerging from the water, or we'll look for their tracks. So they'll leave tracks in the sand with their flippers. And when we see those tracks, we'll automatically say, okay, I see tracks. Now let me look and see if there's another set of tracks. So if there's another set, that means they have nested and then I went back into the water. But if there's only one track, the track that's coming out of the water is our inbound track. So we look at that and start looking for the actual sea turtles. So they usually nest right at the base of the dune, the sand dune, or like on top of the dune. And we'll see that turtle, and then we'll automatically try to see what stage of nesting it is. Because if you go up to the turtle too early, you could spook it and make it do a false crawl, which is basically like goes up the nest, but it doesn't actually nest and goes back into the water. And we don't want that to happen because these are endangered species. Well, technically, the Kemp's Ridley is critically endangered, so we don't want that to happen. We want all the turtles to hatch or and get back to the water as safe as they can. So what we do is we look and see what stage they are in. So we go with like the first stage is actually like the emergence. So that's when they're coming out of the water. And then the next stage is digging. So we watch them dig. So digging can be anywhere from 20 minutes to 30 minutes or so. It depends on the sea turtle too. Sometimes it's hours of digging. But for the Kims, really, it's usually 20 to 45 minutes, and we're watching it dig. And then once it stops digging, it goes into a trance. So the trance is when they actually start laying the eggs. So when they lay those eggs, when they're laying those eggs, like they're pretty much oblivious to everything that's going on around them. So that's when we can actually go up and start working on them. So during that time, we're the first thing we're gonna do is to check for any tags that it has. So we'll check and see if it has those metal tags or those pit tags, and that's let us know if it's nested there before. If it has not nested, we'll go ahead and pit the metal tags on the flippers. So we'll have record of them. And then the next thing we'll do, we'll put a stringer in the nest. That's basically just like a rope. So that goes right into the nest where the eggs are, so that people behind us can come and collect the eggs. And I'll talk more about that later. That they'll come and collect the eggs. But once that stringer is in the nest, then we'll start working it up. So just like a stranded turtle, we'll take the measurements. So we're measuring the carapace of the turtle, which is the back part, the back of the shell. So the top, so it's like the carapace is on the back. So if you're looking down, that's the carapace, and then the bottom part, if you were to flip it over, basically like his stomach, it's the plastron. So we're looking at the carapace. So we're measuring it lengthwise with like a soft tape measure, and then we're measuring that lengthwise and then also widthwise. And then we'll also use giant calipers, which are like metal calipers to measure it. The metal calipers kind of gives like an estimate, but the actual tape measure gives kind of like a true like curvature and length. So we'll measure it that way, and then eventually, like while we're measuring it, if it already has the tags on, we don't have to put tags on it. So we also take a GPS coordinate of where it is nested at, and then we watch it. And once it's done nesting, we watch it pat down and cover the nest. And once it gets back in the water, um, we let everyone else know like the turtle's back in the water safely. And then like our job is also like while we're measuring and taking all the biological data, we also do a skin tag or a flipper tag to get genetic material from it to see if it's a lineage from one of the turtles that's previously nested here or previously nested in Corpus Christi. And then if not, we have the genetic material to see if it's going to be related to any future nesters as well. So once we take all those samples and get all the measurements in, we let it go back into the water. But our job is to make sure it gets back in there safely. So sometimes we have to like either stop traffic or like stand in the way so the turtle can get back in the water. Because Texas, the beach is actually considered a roadway in the Constitution, so people are allowed to drive on the beach. So we're there to protect the nest and then also protect the turtle. Now, once the turtle is nested and going back in the water, within 6 hours or so, we come back and collect the eggs. Now we can collect the eggs because like they're like soft. They're about like ping pong size, but they're soft and leathery. And then the actual like embryo is not attached to the egg yet. It's not attached to like the shell yet. So you can move it um, during that time, during those around like 6 hours or so. You can move it during that time. But if it actually gets like hard, the embryo is attached, you can cause it to fail. And we don't want that. So we try to get it within 6 hours before it's hardening and the embryo has attached. Now, for us, since though we are dealing with endangered species or critically endangered species, and then Texas also allows you to drive on the beach, we're trying to do our best to protect those eggs. So we actually move them to an incubation room, depending on what part of the beach we're at. So if we're in the front country, which is around like 15 miles or so, so Corpus Christi, or not Corpus Christi, Padre Island is around 60 miles of like uninhabited beach. There's a couple of buildings, but Pretty much no other buildings. It's a straight beach line. So it's 60 miles, and after you get past mile 15, it's really rough and remote. You don't have cell phone service, and the sand is pretty thick. So if we're at 15 miles or so, we'll move it to the incubation room, and then we'll let them hatch in the incubation room, and then we'll release them. But past mile 15, we'll usually take them to a natural corral. So we built pretty much like a giant tennis court in the sand where predators and humans can't get into it. So we'll dig new nesting holes and place the turtles in there, let them hatch naturally. Now these turtles, they are hatching naturally. So they're hatching with whichever temperature the sand is. So we monitor the temperature. But for the turtles that are in the incubation room, we actually like um, control what temperature those are gonna hatch at, and we will usually like make it where it's more females because those are the ones that are producing the eggs. So with turtles and most other reptiles, it's temperature dependent. Their sex is temperature dependent. So with most turtles or sea turtles, it's around, I believe it's 82 degrees or so, and it will be a male. And then anything from like 83 to 85 degrees or so will be a female. And then anything above that can be either or. If it's like an extreme temperature, it can be either or. But usually around 85 is female and around 82 is male. So we control so we have more females in, and we'll release those. And then like we make sure after we release them, we have to have a public release since we are a governmental entity and we get funds from the public. So we do have some public releases, and those are usually during the daytime. But for the other ones we release, it's at nighttime. We will release them at nighttime. So that's pretty much what we're doing with sea turtles at Padre Island National Seashore. So like usually if we're not looking for nesting turtles, we're looking for stranded turtles, and we also respond to calls for stranded turtles. So sometimes during like the high tide days, sea turtles like juvenile sea turtles, we call them dinner plate. They're green. They're usually greens, and those are juveniles because they're dinner plate size, about 11, 12 inches or so. They'll get stuck in the jetties, so like rocks that kind of control and break like the waves from coming in. So they'll get stuck there. So we'll go and rescue those and work them up and take them to a rehab. Or if it's they get stranded on the beach, we'll work them up and take them to a rehab. Now, most of the turtles that we see, like as juveniles, you don't know what they are. So we always say they're unknown sex. So most of the turtles that we are working with that are juveniles, like we don't know what sex they are. But occasionally we will get a male, like adult, mature turtle. And with those are actually very special because um, there's a lot of information that we don't know about for male sea turtles, just because they don't come ashore once they can leave as a hatchling and go to sea, they don't come back ashore. So we won't really know that information. So once we get a male turtle that is injured, we rehabilitate them to their natural health, and then a lot of times we'll try to place a satellite tracker on them so we can see what they're doing during those lost years, like where they're foraging at, are they getting in groups. So we put a tracker on so we can understand that information where they're doing, because they don't come back ashore. And then, as always with science, there's an exception because there's a group of green sea turtles in Hawaii that comes back up to actually bask. There's no other adult sea turtles that bask, but for some reason there's a group in Hawaii that has been basking for a couple of decades now, I want to say, and no one really knows why. There's no other sea turtles that do that, but these guys are.
Must be a good location or some good food there or something. I don't know.
Right, right.
So what it you said the turtle excuse me. Um one type was critically endangered.
Yeah, it's critically endangered. So there's a level that I see you in red list. It goes and it's like there's least concern, so it's not threatening at all, and then it's goes to being threatened, then like endangered and critically endangered. So these guys are past like the endanger point, so it's a low level of them, and so these guys in hawksbills are critically endangered. Then the other ones are endangered. So around the U.S., we have 6 different species of sea turtles, and 2 of them are critically endangered, and then the rest are endangered.
So what are two that are endangered?
The
I
Kemp's
mean
Ridley
critical.
sea turtle are the ones that are critically endangered. So Kemp's Ridley and Hawksbill, and
Okay.
then the ones that are endangered are the Oliver Ridley, the leatherback, the green sea turtle, and then the loggerhead. So around the U.S., we have 6 species of sea turtle that either nest or can be found in our waters, and 4 of them are endangered, and then 2 of them are critically endangered. And then there are 7 species of sea turtles, but one of them is only found along the coastal waters of Australia, and that's
Okay.
the flatback.
So what I guess what's the reason for the the turtles, the decline, really? Is it like, just the environment? Is it humans? Is it, does acidification bother that? Like, is that an issue?
Yeah, so it's a lot of different factors. Climate change is one. Plastic is one. Fishing, overfishing, and bycatch. Turtles getting caught in like fishing nets, whether either commercial fishing nets like giant fishing nets, or even like with just like everyday fishermen having nets out, or getting caught in hooks with hooks. That's a number, like that's one thing that caused the decline. And then like back in the day, when a lot of people still foraged sea turtles, that's one thing that actually helped drive the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle population down, is people actually like harvesting the eggs and eating them. So I believe it was like, I believe 1947, there was a video posted. I'll see if I can find it for you. But there was a video where there was a around, I'm gonna say it was estimated around 30,000 Kemp's Ridley sea turtles that was nesting on a beach in Mexico. Now these were only females, so think about that too. It was 30,000 females nesting on the coming up to nest on the beach, and at one time after that they dropped down to around 700 nesting pairs, so 700 females that were nesting on that beach.
Wow.
And it's believed to be because around that sometime in that time frame, the refrigerated truck became available, so people could take the eggs and ship them out.
You said
So
refrigerated, for
the
refrigerated what?
truck,
Okay, there we
refrigerated
go.
trucks,
You're right, got you for shipping and things.
yes.
Okay, got you.
So that's one thing that like helped to drive down the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle population, and now I believe it's back up to around 10,000 or so nesting pairs. But I'll have to double check to be sure.
Right.
And that's through different conservation programs like Head Starting, which is um, hatching a sea turtle and then like keeping it in like captivity until it's close to being mature, and then releasing it. So maybe not like for a lot of years, so maybe like 2 or 3 years until it is big enough to get past most of the predators,
Mhm.
And then you release it. And then that's also like taking like translocating them back to their natural range. So at one point, the turtles in Texas were pretty much almost completely gone. And then there was a Head Start program that got some from Mexico and brought them up here, and had started them here and then released them. And then now there's a population that are like coming back up to Padre Island and the coasts of Texas, that will lay their eggs here. So I'll send this link to you for this video.
Okay.
Um, so that's for some of the things that like cause their decline.
Got you. So we've all seen like those videos with the with the straw up the turtle
Right.
nose, and the 6-pack cans, the plastics, around the necks and stuff like that. Have you personally seen anything like that?
Um, so personally, like I haven't seen like straws, or like the coat holder. But I have seen evidence of like plastic where you can see like plastic with a diamond shaped bite out of it, and those are sea turtle bites. So their beak like bites it out. So I have seen that, and then there are necropsies. I haven't seen like necropsies where plastic was ingested by a sea turtle, but some of the turtles that are necropsy at Padre Island do have plastic in them. But for as far as personally, like most of the evidence I see is the plastic on the beach that have the turtle bites out of it. And then like I've seen evidence of the like getting caught in that that had its right wing, um hold on one second. Its right flipper that was wrapped with a gill net, and then like a 10-pound anchor. So it had probably had around like 100 to 150 yards of net that was wrapped around it with a 10-pound anchor. And like it was still like try to swim in and surf, and fishermen found it, cut the net off. um and then like they called us, so I went and picked it up and worked it up and everything, and then we had to rehab it for a couple weeks. So that's the evidence that I saw with the net. Like those nets, I mean, sometimes those nets are active nets, where people are like currently fishing, and sometimes they're called ghost nets, where the nets have broke and they're just floating in the ocean freely.
Right.
So I've definitely seen those evidence of sea turtles being caught in those nets. And I've also seen evidence of sea turtles like swallowing like fisherman hooks and thing, and those cost them like a lot of times the hooks don't like necessarily like cause them die like right off, but eventually it causes them die because they can't feed.
Right.
So a lot of times it's not them like dying right off because of his bet. It's like the delayed death because of them not being able to feed, or with the nets. Sometimes they drown.
Hmm. Wow. That's crazy. So let's just talk a little bit about your butterfly experience, man. Cause that honestly, I've never heard about that either. So how was that?
Yeah, so that was good. Um, so with that, I was in New Richmond, Wisconsin, with the Fish and Wildlife Service. So there used to be like the butterflies are called Connor blue butterflies, and they're endangered. And they used to be like big populations, like from like Wisconsin, stretching all over like Indiana, Ohio, all the way up into even like New York area. But now there is like hot spots. So hot spots are just like small populations here and there throughout those states. So where I was in Wisconsin, they had been like extirpated. Extirpated is pretty much like locally extinct. So there's no more in that area where I was in Wisconsin. But there was a small population in northern Wisconsin that was still flourishing. So what we did was we obviously, for the first couple of months out the year, we manipulated the land. So these guys like to live in like live on like wild lupin, which is a host plant. It's in the pea family. So like the monarch butterfly have a host plant. The milkweed, these guys use wild lupin. So they like to live on the wild lupin plant, and then they like to live in like forested areas that has like some trees, but not too many. And then also like prairie areas. Now lupin likes to be like it has to like have like disturbance in order to like come in. So the ground has to be like fire or like some type of disturbance for it to be there. But most of the land out in West Wisconsin where I was originally converted all into pretty much farmland, ag land. So we once it was purchased, we start restoring the land back. Now we did a lot of that work. So we're either cutting down trees, treating for invasive plants. That can be invasive trees or just like grass vegetation. So we're treating those, either mechanically pulling them or spraying pesticides on them, treating those, and then eventually planting wild lupin either via seeds or a lot of it we actually grew in a greenhouse, and then we went and planted it. Now, once we had all that, at least in a good effort and going, we went up to state land in northwestern or north Wisconsin and collected around 430 or so eggs, and then around 20 females. And then we brought them back to the greenhouse and reared them up until they hatched, and then release the calipers on the WPAs, which are waterfowl production areas, so the governmental lands and then some private lands until they hatch. So that was the part that I was involved in, was collecting those eggs, manipulating the land, and rearing them in greenhouses. And then unfortunately I actually left the project due to funding before like I can see it, like how many butterflies were there the next year.
Now, what does that look like, man? Like when I imagine you collecting, not you particularly, but like just collecting butterflies, I see people skipping through the fields with the nets and just, trying to get butterflies. Like, what does that look like, getting butterflies into butterfly eggs?
Yeah, so for the butterflies, it's not really skipping. I mean,
No, I wasn't, but you know what I
yeah, I
mean.
know. But I
Like,
was like, yeah, I mean, some people do think like with kids, they are like running, trying to catch it, but
yeah.
you gotta kind of like finesse them, like approach them slowly, and then like swoop with them, and then like it's usually like the bigger your net is, like the longer your net is, the better chance you have of catching them actually.
That's what
And
she
for the
said.
yes. And then for the eggs, it's like on your knees, like looking through the wild lupin. So they like to nest at the base of the plant. So you're like looking through and you see like a grain, you're like, is that sand or is that an egg? And you're like flipping through, like, okay, like eventually you get your eyes are fixated or trained to see the between a spherical egg versus like a rough grain of dirt or sand. So
Hmm.
once you get that, and then that they nest like between 2 and 4 like centimeters from the dirt. So you're looking at that, and when you find those eggs, and then what we did was we would like shave a little piece of the wild lupin off so that the egg is still attached to the wild lupin. And then we're not damaging the lupin that the egg was on, because we want other butterflies to lay eggs on that. So we'll
Right.
take a little sliver of that wild lupin off with the egg and place it in a test tube. And then we'll transfer that to another wild lupin plant that we was growing in a greenhouse. Now it was going up early mornings and checking all the while looping like acres of it, just walking through looking for his wild lupin. Once you found it, then you actually got to get down and look for it. And sometimes it was ants biting you,
Right, right.
or ticks and other insects, especially like mosquitoes and flies. They're coming for you while you're trying to do this, and you're trying to be
Yeah.
very delicate and just shave a little bit off. But it was like it was intense, but it was also rewarding. Especially then like seeing like the and sometimes it was funny like seeing like the females like flying around and like watching the female like, all right, I'm gonna see where she land because she gonna lay an egg right there. And then you watch her, and then you go and see it, and she didn't lay an egg. She was just resting. But the
Right.
one time out of like 20 times you watching, they finally lay an egg. And like, all right, I got it.
Is it a egg?
Yes, it's a egg.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So
All right,
they're a little
man.
different from sea turtles. So sea turtles can lay 100 eggs, like a clutch, so per laying event. But yeah, the Connor Blue 1 egg.
Wow. So, well, you talked a little bit about the ants biting you, ticks getting on you, just getting down and dirty. What are some of the not so nice parts about being a biologist?
Yeah, so some of the nice parts, the not so nice part is, like I said, the insect bites, the ticks, especially for black and brown people. The ticks are a big thing because they have an unfair advantage. Ticks are brown. I'm brown. So they blend in. So I'm like, is that a tick or is that a scar? And you scratch it, it's like it start moving. Like, oh, let me
Right,
pull this off.
right, right.
So you got that, and then you also like a lot of times the animal smells, like especially dead things. Like we do come up across a lot of dead sea turtles, so that's the worst smell I ever smelled.
Mm,
Like I've been around working at the zoo. I've been around like animal poop and all that, but dead sea turtle is just a whole nother level. And that
wow.
smell, and then like if we find a turtle, like even though it's dead, we still have to work it up, take the measurements, and see if it has any tags of it. So yeah, that, and then also like human interactions. A lot of times, whether it's been like my current situation of being in the middle of nowhere, where like I live on a refuge. So like once my colleagues go home, like I'm the only one on the 80,000 acre refuge, and right now I don't have good internet service. So that is a lot of times been out there by yourself, lonely, and then also like a lot of times, um, for me, like many times I'm the only black individual at my office, and sometimes maybe even in that town. So it's definitely kind of draining in that ways too. And then like it's like I'm trying to pit up for like my safety, make sure I'm good, but also put on a little somewhat of a like I guess a safeguard for others. Like I shouldn't
Mhm.
have to do that, but I have to like I'm over there like making sure I'm like waving, smiling as superior, less threatening, and then like a lot of times like also like just like if I'm gonna go around the neighborhood, like pin on bright color clothes, opting for a ball cap instead of a hat because I am a black person in a white neighborhood. Like I don't want anything to happen for me, even if I am just like working out running, which is sad. And like last like my research spot down in South Georgia. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ahmaud Arbery. He was the individual who was running in his own neighborhood, that a group of white people actually tracked him down and killed him. My research site is literally 2 miles, 2 to 3 miles from that area, and that area, although it's somewhat diverse, it still has a high white prevalence, and a lot of them are still racist or look down on black people. So many times, like when I'm dry, like not only do I have like the emotional baggage of having to drive like past the neighborhood where he was killed, but knowing I'm in that area and like that could be me just walking around my field site, and then like there are people that come up to my field site because it's a fishing area off White Route Highway, and I don't know what they're doing. Like they're sitting in their trucks, like they could be watching me. So many times there are trucks there sit there. So like if I'm coming back, like I would take a little bit longer time to see, okay, like are they just like are they just checking their maps? Are they getting ready to fish? Or are they waiting on me? So I'll take my time and see what they're doing, and then watch them leave. So that's at one of my field sites, and then at another field site is right off a state like Park Highway, and a lot of people use that. But there's still people that will either drive slow or sometimes there are people that like string things that string that will actually string words at me. A lot of sometimes they're encouraging words, other times they're the N word. So I was like you're brave enough to say that like when 100 yards in marsh mud and you're driving by. But there's other protection or like protections in place, I guess, which I shouldn't have to do. Like I shouldn't have to like wear like bright colors. I shouldn't have to wear my university like logo on my clothes or have a university truck with logo printed on there just to look and like I belong and like I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to do and like I'm not up to no good. But those are like fail safes that I have to do as a graduate researcher and many times as a wildlife biologist. Like I have to do the same thing, making sure that I'm wearing my uniform when people are around. And like sometimes there are people that still will like question like if you even belong. Like there's like one year when I was in Wisconsin, like I was changing boundary signs, and someone was questioning like, "What are you doing?" Like, what do you think I'm doing? Like, I'm working. Like, I got a
Right.
full Fish and Wildlife Service uniform on, and they're asking what I'm doing. And then there's then there was like asking like, are you sure? Are you sure you work for the Fish and Wildlife? I'm like, you can't buy this uniform. Like, you can't get it from like the Goodwill or something. And then they threatened to call the office to see if I really work there. And then like once I was like, well, I work here, so like call them. And then when I was going back to work, changing the signs, and then he was like, I don't understand why you keep changing the signs, wasting like my taxes. And he's like, I'm just gonna shoot it up when you leave. And
God sakes.
I'm
Wow.
like, go ahead and shoot it up. Like first, like you're paying me to change these signs, and two, like if you shoot it up, like I already know that I changed the sign on this date, like, and three, like since I know I changed that sign and I know that you told me you would shoot it up, like I'll come back here with law enforcement and have them deal with you for messing up governmental property. And then they was like, oh no, I was just kidding. I was like, no, you wasn't kidding. Like you just mad I called you out on it, so you want to change the subject. So sometimes it's stuff like that, or other times it's like people seeing you as less of a scientist. Like in the same town in Wisconsin, like we drove to a weigh station because we had to have our trucks and our trailers weighed to make sure they're in compliance with governmental safety orders. So we went to the station, we went to the weigh station, and everyone else with the Fish and Wildlife Service went in. They're all white, and then I come in, and the truck driver only said anything to me. He looked at me. He's like, "Oh, are you with maintenance?" I'm like really? Like you say that to anybody else, but you'll say something to me like just because I'm black. Like the only level I can be is maintenance. Like I
Right.
can't be a scientist or anything. And then
Yeah.
like after that, he was like, no, I mean like that. I'm like, what did you mean?
How
Like,
did you mean it?
right, exactly. Yeah. And then like he wanted to like he was trying to like change the subject. It's like, yeah, you guys should put some more fish in this pond. I'm like, well, actually, that's the state DNR job. Like, I'm federal. We're actually working with endangered species here. And then he's just like, I'm just like, come on, like it's crazy. Like without knowing you, what people will will actually like think of you by just seeing your skin. Like the highest level we can achieve is maintenance. Like we can't be a scientist, biologist,
Right.
or anything. So I already put that ceiling on you, and like it's definitely no disrespect to any other maintenance workers. Like there's plenty of black maintenance workers in the Fish and Wildlife Service and National Park Service that help to contribute to conservation. They help keep the machinery running so we can do our work. So like big props to them, but I'm just still like don't like try to like put me at a level that you have in your head.
Right. Right. Um, what could anything prep you for? I mean, I know you love, science and nature, but could anything have prepped you for, you know, the mental things you're dealing with? Like you just went on about the things that you, and I've talked to other, people about this topic and this subject. Um, but like, could your science teacher, could your professor, like, hey Alex, I want to talk to you after class, kind of pulled you off to the side, maybe, Alex, being a black guy in this industry, man, you're gonna have some issues, or it's gonna be a little bit harder for you, man. Like a father would take a son, like a black father would take a son to the side and just have that talk about growing up in life. Could anything have prepped you for this, or did you know it was going to be like this, or you know what I mean?
Right, right. I mean, I assume it would be somewhat like this. I didn't know it would be like really like this. I mean,
Right.
because like I grew up in the South, so I know like people like already look at me different.
Right.
But like honestly, like I never had a black science teacher, a black professor. I mean, my white professor probably could have said something, but they still wouldn't know like the true experience. They could have just like, oh, like I seen this and this, but they wouldn't know like the actual like heaviness of it. So that's one thing. Like if I had another black person at the time to like tell me what they experienced, to actually like be like a mentor or even an emotional support person, as I was going through that, that definitely would have been a big help. And it's crazy because actually now I do have that. I'm in like multiple like black and STEM groups, and some of them have actually became like real good friends where we talk, if not every week, at least every other week, where we just check in on each other, and we're a big support system of each other, just seeing what we're doing and check in. And like a couple of them, like I even have like my location like share with them, like okay, like if you don't hear from me, this is where I'm at.
Right.
Come pull up, like so
Pull
yeah.
up on me.
Right, right. So yeah, that's definitely something that I could have benefited from, and it's something that like I want to be that like not only like representation, but also like that mentor leader
Nice.
for the younger generation. Like I have that experience. Like I've been working as a wildlife biologist for going on 7 years now. I worked with multiple different federal agencies. I worked as a private consulting firm. I worked in several different states, um, multiple countries, and with multiple different species. So if something gonna happen to somebody, like I probably experience it and have
Yeah.
a way to work through it. So I
Well,
definitely like that's one of my goals is to be that representation and be a mentor and like someone like okay like you've been through this like what's the deal like is it worth like if it's worth packing up home to go to the city or this state, like I want to like be that help. And like I don't want to get like rich off of this.
yeah.
I want other people like to know what they're getting into and how to deal with it when it comes, because like it's not if it happens, it's when it happens.
Right.
Like you can be like the friendliest black person out there, and people are still are gonna come at you wrong.
So I definitely, know what you're talking about and know where you're coming from. Um, so be that guy, man. Um, speak to that young person of color right now, and just give them a little bit of advice, man. Encouraging words.
Yeah, so I'll definitely say like the first things first, like be 100% unapologetically you, and 100% unapologetically black. Like don't change for anyone. And for me, like growing up, like I really love nature, but for the longest time, like I kind of hid that from other people. And look at me now, like it's what it was my passion. I'm getting paid to do my passion, so definitely stick to yourself, um, being who you want to be, and like don't listen to naysayers. Like a lot of people told me, like, oh, like you love science, you should be a doctor, but that's what I wasn't passionate about. Like you, of course, you can make more money, but are you going to be happy making more money and doing something you hate, or having the freedom to do something you're passionate about? Like I could have been a doctor, but would I've been able to travel for work, try new experiences, try different food that I never thought I would have, or like even like just eating fried chicken in Malaysia is something that I experienced. So definitely like if you have a goal in mind, like continue to push for it. Like it's definitely going to be hard, but it's worth it. Stay passionate about what you're passionate about, and be 100% unapologetic yourself and black. Then get a support system where it's a older mentor or people your age. Reach out to someone who's in the field that you want to be in, and reach out to that person. There's like so many social media or emails available, and then especially if you're black, there's a lot of different groups out there. There's Black AF in STEM. There's Black and Marine Science. There's all Black and X, which are all different Black organizations of people in the STEM field. Um, that will be willing to talk to a future scientist or future engineer, anybody that's looking for encouragement, support, or just want to pick someone's brain about the process of getting a job, process of going through like picking an undergraduate school, picking a graduate school, and even just doing life.
I think it's so much I want. I'm gonna have to get you back on the podcast, man. It's so much I want to talk about because I want to talk about the birds. I want to talk about your future endeavors. It's so much stuff I want to talk about, but time,
Right.
and so hey, this is gonna be the first of many, man, conversations. And I appreciate you for coming on the podcast, man. We've been trying to do this for months now.
Yes,
Months.
yes.
I think like the first time was technical difficulties, and it's a whole bunch of stuff. But thank you for taking time out, man. I know you said your schedule's about to be jumping after this week. So just in the meantime, where can we find you at, man? Because you're killing it on social media. I just want to put that out there, man. Where can we find you at? And any last words?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at nature_al, and that's nature in the number 8TURE_AL. Yeah, so those are two places you can find me. And then if you're Black Marine Sciences, you can find me in that group too. You can find me. I'm on the board for Black and Marine Science. It's one of those groups that is there to amplify and connect Black scientists to each other and just show the world that Black scientists in the marine field, we out here.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. All right, man. Until the next time, stay strong, stay safe. Um, and get me in them groups, man. You gotta connect me, brother, man. You got y'all holding these groups hostages and stuff, man. Come on now, let an oyster shucker in.
Yeah, I got you. I'll definitely share the link.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Until the next time. All right.
All right, sounds good.